Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Dr. James Chitwood, and we're going to be talking about his book, Leadership is Not Enough, an operator's guide to a performance culture. And as you can see, I've already got a post-it note in the book. Jim, I really loved it. Really thought it was a really good book. It's one of those where we're going to come on to where there's a secret where I think if everybody implemented this in leadership, it's like a secret sauce to good leadership.
Yeah.
And if they did all those things, they would be great leaders. I mean, I've read a lot of leadership books, but this one has a real secret in it, which we'll come to.
Thank you, sir.
So Jim, where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find the book at leadershipsnotenough.com. You can go to drjameschitwood.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Dr. James Chitwood. So I would be happy to connect with you, please.
Excellent. Now, you say leadership is not enough. So that actually begs the question, so what is enough?
Yeah, the interesting part about this was I had to create an original thought in order to walk down this new path. And one of the things about doing this is it's a never evolving learning process for myself. I believe that I will always expand. And one of the analogies that has really come to mind to this is I liken leadership to the icing on a cake. It's really good, tastes good. When you look through a window, that's what you see, right? You see the icing. The problem is if you have an entire cake with nothing but icing, it's going to make you sick and it's not going to last, right? You need to have the cake below it. And that's the management structure of an organization, right? I liken leadership to the icing and the management structure of the organization to what makes it really run. I say you can't lead what you can't manage, and you can't manage what you can't measure. And so those all have to be in place in order to create an organization that's going to thrive over time. Leadership is great for a quarter. It's not great for 10 years. You need to have a strong organizational structure that can withstand the changes that occur in any organization's life cycle.
One of the things that you talk about in the book, which to me was a revelation, which is that you come back, you were in the military.
Yes, sir.
You did mortars, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And the revelation that you make is that in the private sector we have an organization and the CEO moves, and then we all sit there going, waiting. Well, we'll wait till the next CEO comes in, because and well, what are you going to do? Well, I'll go to do a bit of shopping and we're waiting for instructions. Whereas in the military, which immediately is something where you're in effect you're following orders. You switch around every 2 years, but the framework still stays in place.
Right.
So what is it that the military know that we don't understand in private sector?
That change is constant. It's really that simple. That change is an absolute. We've all heard the stories of a private becoming a sergeant major in the battlefield because everybody ahead of him was killed. And battlefield promotions are a thing. And so if you understand that change is a constant, then you have to build a structure that can withstand those changes. And so in the military, your enlisted are moving every 4 years, your officers are moving every 2. There's a constant fluctuation of personnel into any one given unit and job. And yet those units always function as they are expected to, because they've built in strong structures to make sure that occurs.
Because when we talk about leadership in military, what we immediately switch to is it's not applicable to us in private sector.
Yeah.
Because what it is, it's about orders, and we don't and leadership isn't about orders. It's about there's different types of leadership, but you don't generally order people to do stuff. Whereas it's not about that, is it? And this is what comes across in the book.
Right. It's about understanding what the mission is, and that's what we're going towards, right? Every organization has a mission, and they should be doing everything in fulfillment of that mission. If not, then there's a direct misalignment, and that organization is not going to survive anyways. So the military, everything is mission driven, and there are operational systems in place to move that forward, regardless of the people doing the job. And that's really the key here, right? Is to recognize that constant fluctuation and build around it.
And so you also talk in the book about the fact that we need to move away from the fact that we treat employees basically as a thing, as they're expendable.
Yeah.
And actually, what we need to do is actually see employees as assets, which in a way, the military do that as well, because you're there on a mission. The mission is this: we need 30 people. You need 30 people because of a particular reason.
Yeah. The military, if you lose a tank, doesn't care. You lose the people in the tank, you care. Right. And it's not just because of the loss of life, and that matters, of course. It's because we're losing assets that have been trained to do a job. We can throw a new tank around that they can hop in and move down the battlefield. What we can't do is replace them with people ready to rock. And that's, when we talk about turnover costs, one of the costs is productivity costs. And it's not just productivity costs for the one individual, it's productivity costs for everybody else who now their performance is decreased. Right. Well, in the military, it is designed this way. So when a new person comes in, that person's ready to rock because they're already trained. They're already part of the system. And that's really the key, right? Is that the human is the asset. The machine is a replaceable piece of equipment.
Yes. And all you're doing is that you're swapping the leader, but in effect, what goes on underneath here, you're still going to fire mortars in the same way.
Yeah. And I can tell you the great leaders that I saw in the military, when they were constantly rotating in front of my eyes, the great ones, they're like, okay, how are we doing this? How do you guys work? How is it you're operating so high? I was part of an extremely highly performing mortar team over in Germany.
You said in the book, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were exceptional. Military is a training organization, and we took it seriously, and all of our training was top notch, and we took it seriously. And the great leaders were the ones that came in and said, okay, how are you guys doing this? And then the worst ones were the ones who came in and said they knew everything. We had this West Point grad came in, arrogant as all get out, and we had to work around him. Honestly, we had to work around him, and we did, and we still performed because we knew what to do, and his impact was minimal. It's not like that person came in and then replaced everybody that directly reported to him, right? That's one of the things that happens in the civilian world is you get a new CEO, they replace all the direct reports, and now you've got a drastically different organization.
What I wanted to come on to was your TRAC model.
Yes, sir.
And you introduce it nicely because you talk about, in effect, creating a psychological safety.
Absolutely.
Which is something that we all, as leaders, that we're all trying to do. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you the classic Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yeah. When I always see that, I always remember the joke with the Wi-Fi at the bottom. But you talk about this TRAC model. So and there are 12 questions that you ask. Talk us through this TRAC model, because for me, this is like, as I said earlier on, if we were all doing this, leadership would be just such a wonderful place.
So easy.
And employees would, I'm going to work today.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm being recognized for what I do. So talk to us about the TRAC model, because you've used this. This is not some theoretical thing. You've used this in business, haven't you?
Yeah, I've used it in business. And at the time, I didn't really recognize I was doing it, Tim, because I hadn't written my book yet. I was just doing it. And then when I decided to write my book and I had my aha moment and my original thought, and I was able to put it out to the universe, I was just so thankful that I was able to concisely say, it's basic. I got to be honest, it's not rocket science. And that's really, I think, the key here is it's not rocket science. It is basic operational framework to create an environment that lifts up employees. My doctorate's in organizational leadership. I spent 5.5 years studying this, not counting dissertation research time, which is a whole other bellywick. And really, it comes down to, how are you holding your people accountable, right? And do they know exactly what they're being held accountable to? No employee should ever walk into an annual review without already knowing the outcome. Why? Because they've had this reviewed with them for the past 12 months and they're really clear. And if at any time they weren't getting it done, then there's a training. in place, ready to rock. Now, I do not believe in having a training department deliver training. I believe a training department are your instructional designers. They create the training, and the people doing the training are the people doing the job. Just like the university model, where you've got the adjunct professor who does the job every day, and you've got the tenured faculty member who's never actually worked a day in that field. You can tell the difference when you sit in their classroom, right? And so the difference is the person doing it is the person teaching it is the person doing it. And when you do that, you are now recognizing the excellence of this individual, which lifts them up. And when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs now, what we have is one person helping another, and that creates strong social bonds in your organization. And there is no stronger bond in an organization than social bonding. And that's the one area that most orgs completely bypass. They think pay and office perks is all you need to do. And what they end up doing is missing the social bonding, which, like any pyramid, if you miss that one, because it's way down on the bottom, if you miss social bonding, your pyramid's not going to survive. So now we're through recognition. And the one thing that combines it all is internal communication strategies. There was one way to lift up your employees or demotivate them fastest, and that's communication. Yes, compensation could be a demotivator. It's not a motivator. It might have a momentary little blip, but it's not a long-term motivator. Giving people the ability to communicate and be heard is a long-term motivator, and that's a fundamental requirement of psychological safety, right? So this entire model is built upon the fact, or built upon the premise, that to create a strong organizational culture, you have to have a strong social bonding. And to have a strong social bonding, you got to have all these basics in place.
So is this about having everybody in the office?
No, absolutely not. I've led remote teams. I've been leading remote teams since 2018. Every time, there is no data that says people are more productive in the office. Now, there are some jobs where, yeah, you need people sitting around together. But I would even argue in today's world with electronic whiteboards and digital connections, that even that's not true if you spend the time to do it right. So now I have been leading remote teams since 2018, and I've been leading them very successfully, and we have great cultures because I understand what it takes to connect with people regardless of the medium we do it.
So when you talk about social bonding, this isn't just about being in the office and having a pool table.
No, not at all.
Else.
No, it's because, listen, you and I play pool, you and I break bread. Don't get me wrong, I love breaking bread with people, but that's good. But it's not as good as when you and I sit this way. I mean, you're on the other side of the pond, my friend, and we've had some great conversations, and I feel that we've connected rather well. Why? Because we authentically did this. A. B, we were given the time to do this. Most organizations don't give their people the time to have these type of dialogues. You know, during the COVID, the forced happy hours. I mean, the idea behind it was nice. It just didn't resonate, right? Because it didn't connect with people at this level. And that's what you got to do, is you got to understand how to connect with people regardless of your medium.
I saw this stuff coming over LinkedIn where people were basically doing what I was calling them stand by the bed meetings, where 8:30 everybody had to get on a Zoom call and basically stand there and say, I love this company and today I'm going to do this. And I was just appalled.
Yeah.
And there were people saying how much they loved it, and you said you don't love it. You know, I would have just resigned if my boss had said do that. I would have resigned.
Totally. Because if you loved it, you would have been in bed half hour early. You would have been dressed. You would have been at your desk, and you would have been, yes sir, ready to rock and roll, or yes ma'am, whatever the case may be, right? But if you're standing on the side of your bed and you're still pulling sleep out of your eye, I mean, imagine if you had an office meeting and people walked in their jammies like that.
So just to go through some of these questions, because I want to basically get the audience to visualize what it is, because I'm a great one for, this is a no BS show. So number one is, do I know what is expected of me at work?
Yeah, these are the Gallup organizations. They come from the book First Break All the Rules. It's a book that I gave to every manager. Just yesterday, I was in a meeting and I recommended to this new manager, go buy that book. Do I know what's expected of me every day? That's accounting 101 or accountability 101, right? It's do I know, right? So that's what that connects to accountability.
Number two, do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right?
Right, and that falls That's really a communication, because if your people are communicating, hey, we've got these struggles, that Southwest debacle that occurred when all the flights got canceled,
Yeah.
their frontline employees were screaming they needed new resources for a decade. That storm was not a surprise to anybody who was in it and dealing with the aftermath. They knew it was coming. So that answers that one.
And then number three, at work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day?
Right, right. And that connects to both accountability and communication. Because if your manager is talking to you every time you're having a regular meeting, and they're finding out how this job fits your personal goals, and that's the key. Most managers, you have this job, do this job, and manage you to this job. Okay, but why do they have the job? That's more important, right? And so when you can understand why they have the job, then you can help them align their intrinsic goals with their organization goals. For some people, their intrinsic goals is not a promotion. They do not want to manage. Matter of fact, this new generation of people,
Yeah.
smartly so, I will add, are not interested in management. Why? Because of all the crap we're seeing. Because organizations don't create strong management structures; they create leadership, and that's it. So that's what that's really talking about.
Yeah, and I remember when in my early in my career, I joined a company and the TRAC was a technical role, and I had decided that I probably wanted to go and work in sales, and they said, "Fine, if you want to do that, what we'll do is we'll find something for you." And they created something for me, and and that was we want you to stay, we want you to be a success, so we're going to create something for you and support you in this. And actually, the salespeople I worked with were mentors to me,
Mhm.
and that was such a great way of entering something. And I could have backed out and said, no, actually, I'm going to go and do a technical role.
Right, right. And your organization treated you like an asset. They could have easily said, well, goodbye, we're going to go hire a salesperson. But they
Yeah,
recognized you as an asset. And
yeah.
that's the diff.
And number four, in the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for doing a good work?
Right, absolutely. And you know what's interesting about this? Everybody talks about the pat on the back from a manager. And don't get me wrong, I'm a real big believer in that. And don't get me wrong, you can do that electronically. I've been doing it since 2018. Um, it's also from a coworker. And I believe that that's actually a stronger form of recognition. A pat on the back from the boss is great. A coworker coming up to you and saying, hey, I really appreciate how you did that because it helped me. Man, that is powerful stuff right there. People quit bosses and stay for teams.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I mean, we underplay recognition. I mean, when I did the leadership training at Oracle, they were always talking about celebrating success, and that's not going out and drinking lots. It's it's about it's about being praised at a meeting, or it's about being praised by just being praised. And hey, I remember, I had a SVP who was always stopping salespeople. Hey, your boss said you did a really good job, and you should have seen the person would walk away like this far off the ground, and that person was heading to do whatever they were going to do with such more vigor and energy.
Yeah, yeah. And there's an old saying, management by walking around, and I agree with the fundamental principles of it. I think what's lost is nobody talks about recognition by walking around. And so most leaders think that their job is to walk around and find opportunities for improvement, right? Don't get me wrong, opportunities for improvement, guys on, we should always be improving. Yes, amen. Hallelujah, great. Recognition matters, right? So when you're walking around, if all you're doing is pointing out what's not perfect and you're not pointing out what is good, then you're failing miserably as a leader.
And just quickly, the fifth one, which is, does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person?
You notice it says, or someone at work, right? And that's the difference, right? And this is the Gallup org. This is a fantastic organization. It's not just does my leader, but it's also does a coworker, right? Do I have someone there who cares about me as a human being? And unfortunately, because so many employees are viewed as liabilities, they are treated as such by their managers. So they don't believe their manager cares about them as a person, because the managers never said, hey, how does this job help you fulfill your long-term goals? And how can I help you achieve what you want to be doing in 10 years? Right?
Yeah, and yes, and I had a leader, and it was he said, we'll have, I can't remember how often, but we will have one-to-ones. And he said, this is your time. You set the agenda. You tell me what you want to do. But I basically switch off the phone. We shut the door. We put the laptops away, and you will have my full attention.
Yeah.
And he was one of the best leaders I had, purely because I knew that I had that time with him, and I knew that he had the full attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I'll tell you, the one challenge in a remote environment is how quickly and how often I'll see a leader I'm talking to look over at this other screen while talking to me, right?
Yeah.
And pretend they're answering the question, and then I'll ask something insightful or deep, and they'll go, wait, what?" I'm like, "Dude, really?"
Yeah, the giveaway often is that you can see the reflection of the screen on the glasses.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like you shouldn't. You clearly don't play cards, because I can see what cards you've got. Jim, thank you so much for coming on and talking about
Yes,
your book, Leadership is Not Enough: An Operator's Guide to Performance Culture. If I wanted to buy one, where can I get one?
It's on Amazon. You could also go to leadershipIsNotEnough.com, and that'll give you a link directly to purchase it. It is an operator's manual. It is a to-do list. It's do's and don'ts. It's literally something that you can pick up and implement immediately.
I tell you what, there's no fluff.
No.
It is, if you're in leadership and you want to be the best leader that you can be, I would recommend, and it's only, 135 pages.
Yeah.
You could read it over a weekend.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
you will be the best. And it's that secret sauce of that TRAC methodology, that if you implement that, you will be the best leader. For sure.
Thank you, sir.
Where can people find you?
You can go to LinkedIn, Dr. James Chitwood, or you can go to just search bar, drjameschitwood.com. Both of those will take you to me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim.